Today, the open world racing genre is really popular, but up until the late 2000s, you only really had a choice of 3 AAA open world racing games. One of the 6th and 7th generation Need for Speeds, Test Drive Unlimited, or Midnight Club. But 3 people were about to turn the genre on its head. Well, 3 people, a load of people who they hired, another game studio, and a major conglomerate. And I'll try to explain this as quickly as possible. In 2009, 3 ex-Codemasters employees founded Playground Games. They hired various people from Codemasters, BlackRock Studios, Bizarre Creations, and a few other game studios based around Britain. They then formed a partnership with Microsoft Studios and Turn 10 Studios, the developers of the Forza Motorsport series. The result of this partnership was the development of an open-world racing game loosely based on the Forza Motorsport series, which was exclusively circuit-based. But that wasn't their first pitch to Microsoft. Playground Games originally wanted to make a 5th game in the Project Gotham Racing series, which stopped after Activision's acquisition of Bizarre Creations. The first thing that Playground Games and Microsoft Studios had to do was find a setting for their new game. Over 30 locations all over the world were considered, including Hong Kong. The artists at the 2 game studios had made concept art of what an open world racing game set in Hong Kong would look like, and it looks amazing. But in the end, they chose Colorado, which personally I do think was a mistake. The developers took over 30,000 photos of the US state and created their own condensed version of it. So it wasn't a one-to-one recreation like what Eden Games did with Oahu for Test Drive Unlimited, but that meant the developers could put more detail into the map as it would be smaller. Playground Games were also given the game engine used for the Forza Motorsport 4 that Turn 10 Studios had slowly been developing and improving ever since the series had begun in 2005. The issue that they had was how to modify it so it could be used for an open world game, and that might explain why most of the game is limited to roads, but I'll talk more about that in a bit. They also had to get the game engine to work with a day and night cycle, which hadn't been implemented into any of the motorsport games at that point. With all of the modifications that Playground Games would have had to make to the game engine, surely it would have been better to make their own from scratch. The modified result was good, as they had a lot of developers who all worked at different studios in the past, and could bring different ideas to the table. But it could have been a lot better, and the rest of the game suffers because of it. Luckily there's no slowdown or screen tearing, which was a common issue with the Xbox 360 near the end of its life. But Forza Horizon only plays at 30 FPS, instead of 60 like Forza Motorsport 2, 3, and 4. Forza Horizon was released in October 2012 to fill the gap between Forza Motorsport 4 on the Xbox 360 and Forza Motorsport 5 on the Xbox One. The premise of the game is to become the best driver at the Horizon Festival. The Horizon Festival is a music festival that has an automotive element to it. The actual festival itself has the auto show, Dax Garage, which is where you upgrade your car, the paint shop, and Race Central. You have to drive to the festival in a slightly modified Volkswagen Corrado VR6. But there's a problem. There are only 10 places left at the festival, and so you have to drive there as quickly as possible. I say as quickly as possible, but this being a Horizon game, this is very scripted, and it's impossible to lose. Seeing as this is the introduction to the game, it is kind of acceptable, and a lot of people wouldn't have had a good first impression of the game if they couldn't even get into the main story. I think game developers everywhere learnt that lesson with the first driver game on the original PlayStation and PC. In the main story, you will meet many different characters. Some are other racers such as Darius Flint and Zaki Malik, But you've also got people who work for the festival, like Alice and Dak. They are some of the best written characters that I've seen in a Forza Horizon game, and they all have completely different personalities. It's not like the later Horizon games where everyone all starts to become the same person. I think the story in the first Forza Horizon was done perfectly. It doesn't take the player away from the racing too much, and when it does, it's mainly to give context to what you're supposed to do, such as getting a new wristband, or it's things like other racers saying something at the beginning of a race, which gives you more clues to what they are like as a person, and that adds to the story.
Okay, kid, you've had your 15 minutes of fame. All eyes are now back on the real celebrity.
A lot of the story happens at Race Central. Race Central is where you get the wristbands. You get a different coloured wristband when you've got enough points to go up to the next level. It takes longer and longer to get each passing wristband, and it took me about 20 hours to get all 7 in one of my many playthroughs of this game. When you get a new wristband, you unlock more events. Playground Games need to take inspiration from their own game for the next Forza Horizon, as the later games have little to none of a story whatsoever, and the little bits of a story that they have aren't that good. This game showed that they know how to write a story, and I think the Horizon Festival was a brilliant idea, and it gives a lot of context to why you're legally allowed to race on the open road. I don't normally like storylines in racing games, but Forza Horizon shows that it can be done well. Not only that, Forza Horizon has a lot of different race types, which in a lot of ways also adds to the story. The legal, officially sanctioned races are the main part of the game. They are mainly just circuit and point-to-point races, which do get boring after a while. Even though a few of them use the car class or a car's country of origin as an entrance condition, a lot of them require a specific car, and because of that I would have run out of money more often than I would care to admit if it wasn't for the Street Race Hub, which I'll talk more about in a minute. Star Showdowns are one-on-one street races against the racer who is the star in the level that you've just completed. The game doesn't mention this, but you race for pink slips, so if you beat them, then you'll win their car. At the beginning of the Horizon events, the star will say various things and do become quite annoying, so it's so satisfying beating them in the Star Showdown. But I do think things could have been improved. I think it would have been better if the pink slips worked both ways, as that would have given the player a bit more of a challenge. But I guess if the developers did it that way, then they would have had to spread these races out a little bit more so the player could earn more money for a new car to redo the race if they lost it the first time. I originally thought that the Star Showdowns were illegal, but they do have their own stand, which makes it look like it's officially sanctioned by the festival. Showcase events are events where you race a car against something that isn't a car, and I mean something that flies, such as a plane or helicopter. As there's no roads that run along a river, you don't have showcase events that put you up against boats or hovercrafts like in the later games. These events are very scripted, but that's to make the racing as close as possible. The game will provide the car, and when you win, you get to keep it. Everything about the showcase events is pretty much perfect. The vehicle the game makes you race is a good match for your car, the difficulty isn't too easy or too hard, and the events are spread out quite well, so you don't unlock all of them that quickly. The cars you use gradually get faster and faster, so you use the 1970 Ford Mustang in the showcase near the beginning of the game, but you'll end up using cars such as the C6 Corvette, Ferrari F40, and the Aston Martin 177 throughout the game. These events are sanctioned by the festival, but there are some that aren't, like the street races. The Street Race Hub are 3 secret locations where people meet for illegal street races. I guess that is a bit obvious. It's where you can make the most amount of money in the shortest time possible before you get to the last 5% or so of the game. The free street race hub locations have all of the illegal street races, but you can't do all of them at once. You have to progress through the Horizon Festival to unlock more street races, which, from a gameplay point of view, makes sense as you want the player to progress through the parts that give you a lot of money slowly. But at the same time, it also doesn't make much sense. Why would you have to progress through the legal part of the game to be able to progress through the illegal part, which has nothing to do with the Horizon Festival? It would have been better to have other kinds of unlock conditions, such as winning a certain car from the festival events, and have street race hub events where you can only use that car. I do wish that the street race hub had more of a presence in the game, as I found the races to be quite cool, and it is one of the more fun parts of the game. One of the issues that you might come across in the early parts of the game is having to drive all the way from one side of the map to the other when you're going from event to event. But the developers found a solution to that: Horizon Outposts. These are places where you can fast travel to, so you can save a bit of time and money. To begin with, you do need to spend what I think is way too much money to fast travel, but they do have challenges and events which, when completed, will give you a discount on the fast travelling. There are 3 PR stunts that need to be completed in order to get 100% off. First of all, you have the speed stunt. Here you need to drive through a speed trap, going faster than what is required. The speed trap is 1 or 2 miles from where you start, so the game gives you plenty of time and space to get up to speed. Then you have the photo shoot. The game will tell you to take a picture of the provided car with something in the background, such as the Iron Bridge, Wine Bottle Rock, or the main stage of the Horizon Festival. There is also a damage meter, and if that goes all the way down whilst you're on your way to the landmark, then you'll fail. I was trying to rush through these as quickly as possible, so a lot of my pictures weren't really that good. The last PR stunt is the skill stunt. The goal of this is very simple. Drive along the suggested route whilst getting as many skills points as possible before time runs out. These sound straightforward, but you do need to think about what skills you're going to go for, as some skills that are good to get with one car might not be that easy to get with another. For example, it's easy to get drift skill points with the Corvette ZR1, but not so much with supercars. So I mainly went for speed and near miss skills points with cars like the Ferrari F430 Scuderia and the Lexus LFA. This is another thing that I wish the developers bring back, as it's become a bit too easy to fast travel for little to nothing in the newer Horizon games. Another way to make money is by going through the sponsorship challenges. There are so many sponsorship challenges, including speed, drifting, e-drifting, air, near miss, drafting, passing, and the ultimate skills challenge, which is when you do the other skills for so long that the game stops increasing your skills points. Once you've done enough of a certain skill, then you'll earn a bit of money and move up a rank. The sponsorship challenges are sponsored by actual companies such as Adidas, Oakley, Rockstar Energy, G-Shock, and GoPro. I'm not sure if these companies paid Microsoft to be in the game, as it is sort of advertisement. And I do remember advertisement working, as I started drinking Rockstar Energy drinks at around the same time I started playing this game in 2012. There are also sponsorship challenges for online stuff such as King and Infection, but the online is no longer available, so you can't do any of them. Going through the sponsorship challenges also has the added benefit of moving up the popularity chart, which is needed to progress through the game. The sponsorship challenges and the popularity chart are both features that I wish were still in the series to this day. None of the Xbox One or Xbox Series X/S games have it. Makes sense as those games are very open-ended, whilst the sponsorship challenges and popularity chart were a good way to control the rate of progression. Forza Horizon has yet another aspect to the story and gameplay, as you also have to find cars that are hidden all over the map. And it's not like your typical barn find, where you come across a 30-year-old Mitsubishi Evo in a garage somewhere in the countryside, only to find out that you can't legally take it. Then you have to find the owner who says, "I know what I've got," asks for 3 times more than what the car is worth, and then tells you that they've lost the V5. So you then have to go to the DVLA and fill out a load of paperwork, put the car on a trailer and drive 300 miles home, then get denied the V5 and have the police show up at your door at 6 in the morning because the car was used for ram raiding in the early to mid 1990s, even though that would have made the barn find in Forza Horizon a little bit more interesting. Every now and then you get a tip-off of an abandoned car in a barn, and the circle will appear somewhere on the map. The car is in that circle. Once you found it, then it will be sent back to Dak's garage for him to restore. Overall, there are 9 cars that you need to find. You have cars such as the Bugatti EB110, BMW M1, and the Aston Martin DB6 Vantage. A lot of the cars are hard to find if you've never played the game before, which is surprising as some of the barns are just on the side of the road. I guess that's the only way of doing it when most of the map isn't explorable. I really like this feature, but it is a bit boring. I think the map not being fully explorable has a lot to do with that. It also would have been better if you had to look for car parts instead of a full car, like in Test Drive Unlimited 2. The first Forza Horizon has the best progression of any Forza Horizon game, even after almost 11 years and 4 more games. The reason for this is because the newer games are open-ended, as the developers and publishers want you to keep playing until the next game. But I guess back then they didn't know if there was going to be another Forza Horizon. Once the game became a massive success, they did release DLC called Club 1000, which added more events. But unfortunately, I don't have access to the Xbox account that I was using back then, so I can't show any gameplay of it. It took me about 20 hours to get through the base game. I do wish that the game had more races, as even though that 20 hours is reasonably long, it's about 7 hours shorter than the time it took me to do everything in Test Drive Unlimited 2, which was this game's main competition. The game is realistic. Not as realistic as Forza Motorsport 4, but it is a lot more realistic than Test Drive Unlimited 2, which was released only a year before. I like the direction the developers went in when it came to the physics, and I'm sure they probably did a test of a version of the game with Forza Motorsport 4's physics and didn't like it. Think about all of the open world racing games that have been released in the past 20 years or so. Test Drive Unlimited 1 and 2, the rest of the Forza Horizon series, the Crew 1 and 2, and half of the Need for Speed franchise. What do they all have in common? None of them are simulators. Not even Simcade racers. So Forza Motorsport 4's physics probably doesn't work well in an open world setting, as it's also about playability, and a lot of people don't like realistic physics because of the difficulty. But it's like what I said in my review of Forza Motorsport 4. It gets to a point where a game is boring if you don't have a challenge. The physics are a good mix of arcade and simcade, which only really works in a game like this, and the physics are complemented well by the graphics. To me, this is the second best looking Xbox 360 game after Forza Motorsport 4. I think graphically Forza Motorsport 4 is better, and the 30 frames per second in Forza Horizon is no match for the 60 frames per second in Motorsport 4. I know that it wasn't technically possible to get 60 frames per second, even with the amount of modifying Playground Games did to Forza Motorsport 4's game engine, but at least there's no slowdown or screen tearing. The day and night cycle was something new to the Forza series as a whole, but the game doesn't look that good at some points in the day, such as early evenings. It almost looks like the filter was used, which was no longer a trend in 2012. Despite the filter looking early evenings, Playground Games' version of Colorado is still very beautiful. Even though it seems that the map only contains one biome that is the size of the Nürburgring, the developers managed to get quite a lot into it. You have a couple of towns, a highway, valleys, vast flats, a dam, and a few other areas that are all connected by roads that are amazing to drive on. It feels like the developers took a lot of inspiration from half of the tracks in Need for Speed 3 Hot Pursuit. Even though the map is packed full of roads and different areas to explore, a lot of the map that isn't road cannot be explored, but you can drive around half of the golf course and the warehouses in the large town of Carson. I don't think Colorado was the right choice for this game's setting. I think Hong Kong would have been much better, especially after seeing the concept art of a Hong Kong Horizon game. I like the map, and I can't really be negative about the lack of explorability as that was out of the developer's control, but I do think the map could have been a little bit bigger. I personally would have been happy with a slightly less detailed, but bigger map. And the map isn't the only aspect of the game that I think should have been expanded upon, as the car list is also a bit small. Without DLC, Forza Horizon has about 150 cars and somewhat 200 with DLC, but everything to do with the game reached end of life status in September 2016, so if you didn't buy the DLC by then you'll never be able to get it, which is a shame. Forza Horizon might not have as many cars as Forza Motorsport 4, but there is some variety in the car list. You have small hatchbacks such as the Citroen DS3 and the Mini Cooper to supercars and hypercars like the Ferrari 599XX and the Lamborghini Aventador. There's also SUVs, which makes a lot more sense in this game than it did in any of the motorsport games. I like the car list, but there's one huge issue with it. There are DLC cars that should have been in the game from the start. I'm talking about all of the cars that were in Forza Motorsport 4, either in the base game or as DLC. So cars such as the Ford Transit Supersport van, Nissan 240SX, Ferrari 458 Italia and the GMC Vandura. That is just a few of the cars that were in Motorsport 4 and were DLC for Forza Horizon. The game uses Forza Motorsport 4's car files, and the first Horizon and Motorsport 4 were in development at the same time, so they could have got the licensing for cars to be used in both games. You know that when the cover car of a previous game is DLC, then it's clearly an exercise in money grabbing rather than prolonging the life of the game. That is an issue that the game's player base has with the newer titles as well. The assets used for the cars look amazing for a late Xbox 360 game. Well, they should, as a lot of them came directly from Forza Motorsport 4, the best looking game on the system. They aren't the only thing that's been carried over from the fourth Motorsport game, as you can also upgrade and customize your car as well. The car upgrading is pretty much the same as it is in Forza Motorsport 4, so you can add more power with either engine upgrades or by swapping the engine entirely. You can also remove weight and change the suspension, brakes, anti-roll bars and tyres to make your car handle better. You can add fully licensed body parts to a few of the cars as well, but drivetrain conversions are missing, so you can't convert something in front-wheel drive to all-wheel drive. You also can't tune the parts that you buy like you can in all of the motorsport games, so you can't mess around with the brakes and suspension settings or change your gear ratios, which does take the fun away from the upgrading a little bit. Car parts are also quite expensive, but there is a way around that. There are discount signs dotted all over the map, and as you drive into one, you get 1% off. It will take forever to find all 100 discount signs, but the savings you'll get makes it an offer too good to pass up. As you can see from my recreation of a G4 Challenge Range Rover, you can also customize the way your car looks. You can change the colour, add decals, and create decals, just like in all of the Forza Motorsport games. The one thing that I don't like about this aspect of the game is that you can't add an existing logo to your custom decal, and so it has to be added when you put it on the car, which can take ages if you have more than one custom decal. No open world racing game was this detailed when it came to upgrading and customization. You can upgrade and customize your car in games from franchises like Need for Speed, Midnight Club, and Test Drive Unlimited, but in Forza Horizon it was easier, yet more in depth in quite a few places. That's something that Playground Games has refined throughout the years. The first Forza Horizon is a brilliant game, even if I think the car list, event list, and map are a bit too small. The physics are perfect for a game of this type, and the game has the second best graphics on the Xbox 360, beaten only by Forza Motorsport 4. Even though storylines in racing games are usually a bit cringy, and in most cases don't belong, Playground Games did a good job in creating one that didn't get in the way of the racing, and I wish they would create a storyline like this for the newer games. Unlike the newer games, most of the characters are likeable, and the ones that are unlikable are meant to be unlikable, such as Darius. Really, the only issue with the game is that we needed more of it. To an extent, the game still holds up well today, 11 years after it was released, and because of that, I have no other choice than to recommend it. You don't need an Xbox 360 to play it, as it's one of the few racing games that is backwards compatible with the Xbox One and Xbox Series consoles. It also apparently runs really well on the Xbox 360 emulator known as Xenia on PC, so there are quite a few ways to play it. Even though there are other open world racing games on the Xbox 360, none of them are like Forza Horizon, and only Test Drive Unlimited 2 comes close. This has been my review of Forza Horizon on the Xbox 360. This has been on my review list for years, and whilst writing the review script, I played through it 3 or 4 times. And then there was the issue where I deleted all of the gameplay footage by accident, so then I had to play through it again. But it is the longest review script that I've ever written to date, as it's just over 4,500 words long. But I know I'll be able to write a lot more about the later Horizon games after the second one. If you liked this review, then give it a like. If you didn't, then that's your problem. And if you want to see more, then please consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.